students, welcome to Module 11. In Module 11, we're continuing our communication, professional communication, and digital platforms with a heavy emphasis on email, texting, internal messaging, chat-based communications, as well as social media. In this module introduction, we meet with Chris Angel of Mountain Credit Union. I'm so grateful that Chris was willing to share his time with us as we covered the topics of digital and professional communication. In addition to the interview with Chris, you have both textbook and module-related resources. Within your module, you have both textbook and industry-related resources. Please take the opportunity to review both prior to completing your graded activities. Thank you, Chris, for joining us today. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your position, and what you do.
Great. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for the opportunity. My name is Chris Angel. I'm the Vice President of Marketing and Business Development at Mountain Credit Union. I've been with the credit union for 23 years. I started at an entry level as a loan processor, and then worked my way up to loan officer, and then became branch manager in our Fletcher location, which is here in Henderson County. That's how I ended up in Henderson County and been here ever since. But then I moved up from there to Business Development Director, and now I'm in charge of both business development and marketing.
Let's talk about professional communication in the workplace. How important is that to your place of business?
I think written communication especially is a critical tool in today's professional setting, whether it's email, social media, texting, messaging, any type of written communication can have a direct effect on our professionalism, with the way people view us in that setting, and also with our professional growth.
So what I'm hearing from you is that professional communication both is a reflection of us as an employee and as a person, but also as the business in which we are currently employed. So you're kind of marketing for both as you're developing that communication. The
same way that a company uses different platforms to build their brand reputation, we're also building our own reputation based on the way we use the tools that we have access to.
Now, let's talk a little bit about professionalism and communication when we're looking at usage, structure, and formatting in digital. So focusing on those emails, talk about that.
Just having a good structure, good subject line, a good greeting, professional greeting, concise and clear structure in the message that we send, and also a good closing with our contact information. That's really important to make sure you include, so that the person knows who they're speaking with, and also ways to reach you when they want to reach back out after or follow up after the message. Just following this solid structure definitely make sure that you'll be understood correctly and also clear in your communication.
Now let's talk about email communication in a professional setting, both internally and externally. So when I speak of internal communication, really that's colleague to colleague, maybe an employee communicating to their boss. When we talk about external, we're focusing on communicating with the customer. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Be maybe a little bit less formal if you're talking to someone you know, but if you know that message is going outside your organization, it's very important to keep it professional. Avoid using any kind of slang terms or any kind of abbreviations that maybe that external person wouldn't understand. And also just keep in mind that anything you put out there could come back to haunt you or be used against you later if you maybe you say something you shouldn't or share information that's confidential. You have to be aware of those kind of things if it's going outside the organization. Even internally, if you send a message, you have to be aware that can happen then as well, because you really don't want a coworker to misunderstand a message that you send because you've used language that you shouldn't have, or maybe misrepresented what you wanted to say because you haven't been professional or concise in your messaging.
Sure, I kind of term it CCR, clarity, concise, and revise.
Right.
So being very specific in what you're sending out. Very concise, keeping it very simple, but also taking an opportunity to just review it and revise it. Check for grammatical errors and oopses. Sometimes we add an extra letter where we shouldn't, prior to adding in the actual email address to send it. So I don't even put that email address in until the very end, and once that message is ready to go, then I pop that in and send it.
Right, I've even had a coworker proofread for me, just in case, check for typos and make sure because if you send it out with that typo, it's out there. There's no recall for that. It says you can recall it, but once it's out there, it's out there.
Awesome. And also relying on your supervisor or your mentor as a resource.
Sure.
If you're addressing a customer concern, it may sound correct to you, but also pitching it up the ladder just to say, hey, is this a best practice before I send this out? And using those resources to assist you.
Right, absolutely. Proofreading and using those around you who may have a better understanding of communication, that definitely could be a tool worth using.
Let's talk about the world of messaging and texting in the workplace. So we're talking about professionalism and the use of messaging. When I speak about messaging, I'm really talking about internal Teams or Slack-based messaging systems. Texting, of course, is our mobile texting systems.
Again, be clear in your messaging, stay professional, avoid using any kind of slang terms. Using informal language or emojis is definitely a no-no in a professional setting. You want to avoid sharing any confidential information. Definitely don't want to overshare anything that might go against company policies. You have to keep in mind that anything can be retrieved. If you say something that you shouldn't have, it could be serve as documentation in any disciplinary action, and you could actually be held legally liable for certain things if it comes to that.
I think there is almost a filter or a perception of a filter when we use digital communication, that we aren't actually saying it because we're not verbally communicating it. And I think that's a false filter. And really understanding in professional settings the use of messaging systems, texting, and email communication, that is a digital footprint that students or employees are creating, and that all serves as either support for an action or support against an action, and that's important to remember.
Anything can be printed and put in your personnel file, so you have to keep that in mind. That if it's written, it's out there, and it's like you said, it's digitalized and can be printed and used later on. Another
area I like to highlight when we think about communication in the digital platform is the time and use. It's very tough to get audience and tone across in a digital communication, whether it is an email, a text, or a messaging system. We may perceive that it will be read that way. It doesn't mean that it is received the way we intend.
Take it from me, I've had this happen to me personally, where an email goes out to a coworker and they didn't understand tone, because you can't inflect your language, you can't show your body language, any of that. Written can sort of seem kind of dry. So you have to be careful of that. You have to really be aware that if you sometimes can be maybe too concise or too clear, and that be misrepresented by your reader, by your audience, and then that can be taken in a way that you didn't intend.
Absolutely. Also keeping in mind the right time and the right place to select that channel. For example, if we're going to be late to work and we're stuck in traffic, that may be a great opportunity to make a phone call, right? Given the instance that maybe we were supposed to produce a report to be presented and we are going to miss that meeting, maybe a text isn't the right way to send that message. So knowing your audience, knowing the timing and the information you're trying to get across, definitely selecting the appropriate channel for communication.
Absolutely. There is a time, and I've always said that after maybe 3 emails back and forth, it's probably time for a phone call or a direct meeting.
So definitely taking omni-channel marketing, using multiple channels of communication to get the point across to make sure it is received the way we wanted the communication to hit. Topic is social media in business, both external and internal. A lot of businesses maintain a social media page, whether it is a Facebook, Instagram, Meta profile, whatever that looks like, there is a social media presence. A lot of employees also maintain their own personal social media. Let's talk about professionalism on both.
Social media, you love it or you hate it. I have mixed emotions about social media myself. I'm in charge of the social media at Mountain Credit Union, so I have to maintain the professionalism on that side, on the workplace side, and then I also, of course, have my own personal social media pages and things like that I share things on. And you have to really be aware, again, that anything I put out personally is a reflection, because I am seen as a representative of the credit union, even when I'm out in the community at different things, or you may not like it, but if people know you as an employee of a certain organization, anything that you do can be a reflection on that organization. So you have to keep in mind, keep things professional. Don't overshare anything that's confidential. Again, confidentiality covers all different channels. Keep in mind those company policies that we're talking about. Most companies do have a social media policy, internally and for employees. So you have to keep those things in mind. Anything you post, you're out there. It's a digital world and can spread like wildfire, and can be definitely something that comes back and used against you. If you post something that you shouldn't have, employers could actually terminate your employment if you do something or post something that you shouldn't, and they happen to see it. We've had instances like that, where I've had to maintain professionalism on the company social media. Just make sure you don't say anything you shouldn't, or say anything that's offensive to any party. And that's tough, because everybody has a different interpretation of what can be offensive. So, but these are things that you have to keep in mind for sure.
So ultimately, I think the key takeaway is, regardless of the digital communication channel selected, it's professionalism, maintaining brand image, regardless of whether it's personal or professional, and also being mindful of audience tone, revising the content should the content go out, and selecting the appropriate channel to get that out.
The content's going to go out. It's going to go somewhere.
Right.
And it's going to be seen by more people than maybe you intended it to. The possibility is always there. Something to keep in mind.
Great. Okay, that's the students also do an interview project. It is a component of the interview project. After they've completed their mock interviews, there's a follow-up component. So you've completed your job interview, now what?
I think it's definitely good practice to send a follow-up, maybe a thank you message via email. So you just say, hey, I'm very happy for the opportunity. I appreciate the fact that you brought me in to do the interview. Maybe that's a good time to also sum up the key points that you discussed during the interview, just to show that you were listening during the time you were there. Also, if they've asked for any additional information, maybe they want references, or they need a different way to contact you, those are good. That's a good time to submit those with your thank you message as well. So just really following up, saying thank you, and answering any questions that they may have had that you need to address, and show them that you were present and interested during the interview process.
So the next step after you've completed the interview is to send that follow-up thank you email within about 24 hours.
24 hours.
You shared a little bit about what to include in that email, but give us a best practice. Give us a tip for students.
I think just showing that you're sincere. A lot of times employers, they may have applicants who are just going through the motions, applying for jobs that they may not really want to take on. So if you really want that job, show that you're sincere, show that you appreciate them. Again, you can't say that enough. The thank yous go a long way. But really just show that you're interested in the position, you are sincere, and that you would welcome the opportunity if they accepted your application for that position.
So approaching it with gratitude, of course, professionalism and communication, but also saying kind of why you are the ideal fit for this position and your level of interest moving forward.
Right, sincerity goes a long way.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Chris. We appreciate your time.